Welcome to the Generational Icons podcast, and we have a great show for you today.
Yeah, we have a great episode today with, I would say, an icon, right? I think like that's the only way to describe her as an icon. Our show is called Generational Icons, but in true fashion, I mean, I don't think there's enough titles for us to, I don't think it would be fair for us to say all the titles and all the great things that you do. So, ladies and gentlemen at home and everywhere you're watching this, please give a round of applause to Moumita Rahman, an amazing individual, the superstar, and like I said, an icon. So, welcome, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
We're so excited today. First and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with us. As I've told you before, we're a financial literacy podcast, really focusing and helping South Asians and Middle Eastern and kind of minorities in general to really get acclimated into the financial literacy space, but more so to that kind of highlight everyone and highlight the icons that we believe that are icons in their own generation, to talk about who they are and where they came from. So one of our other segments, our first segment, is culture and identity, and part of the reason why we named it culture and identity is more so focusing on who we are and where we came from and our background and our culture. I believe, and I'm sure you agree and others agree as well, really kind of sets us up to become who we are in the future, right? And it kind of gives us that identity. So if you don't mind kind of sharing your story, your background, where you came from, kind of what you were telling us a little earlier.
Absolutely. I would love to share where I'm from. So I was born in Bangladesh, and I came to the US when I was 5 years old. We moved directly to New York, and we actually first lived in the Bronx. And at some point, your hometown, right? At some point, we did move from the Bronx to Astoria, Queens, very early on. So I was in the Bronx only for like a very, very short period of time. And this is in the late 80s. So I would say probably came to the US 87, 88, and that's around the time that we settled down in Queens. Astoria, New York at that time did have Bangladeshis, but it's not the way that it is right now.
It is today now.
Yeah. I believe the phrase in Bangla is called jamjama, or like it's just packed with Bangladeshis right now. And back then there were not that many. The families were scattered. There were two grocery stores, Mochak Bazaar and Meghna, which Meghna I don't believe is even Bangladeshi. I think it's Indian. So that's what it was. Yeah. And it was a heavily Greek area still at that time. And that's where we first settled down. And after, around that age, we did a lot of moving around. So I would say around 5th grade, we moved out of New York to Atlanta because my uncle had moved down to Atlanta. And as with all immigrant parents, they're always looking for a better life. And I don't know about you, but my father always thought that life was always going to be better outside of New York. So we actually moved out of New York a total of 3 times. Once to Atlanta, we moved back to New York the same year. The biggest move that I ever had, though, was when I was in high school. We moved from New York to Texas.
To Texas?
And, yeah.
Where in Texas?
It was this little Plano, Texas. It was a suburb of Dallas. Yeah. And it was really quite a shock to me because the first year that I moved there, that's when there were all these 15-year-olds dying of heroin overdoses. And here I was, a girl from Queens. Not only was I from Queens, I was actually attending high school not too far from here. My high school that I was attending was called the High School of Economics and Finance, and it was right by the World Trade Center. Taking the train by myself, and I found myself in this really it was like a whole new planet down there in Texas. It was such a big culture shock, and I am really grateful for that experience right now, but at that age it was very difficult. Culturally speaking, socially speaking, everything was different down there. And I found myself being, a real minority down there. And also, it was just completely different. But I ended up starting college in Texas.
Oh.
And
Where did you go?
I went to Southern Methodist University.
Okay, yeah.
Which was, it's a great school. It is a great school. When I applied, it was my safety school, though, because I was trying to get out of Texas. But I just ended up there, and we actually ended up moving back to New York right before September 11th happened. But
that year?
That year we moved back to New York. However, I was still going back and forth
from Texas to
for college. Whenever it was summer break, winter break, I would always be back in New York. So actually, I wasn't even here when September the 11th happened. I was down there, and I remember that day very clearly because my mom called me because she was actually driving on her way into the city. So that was very formative. So that, I would say, really was a very valuable education for me. Living, not just being a New Yorker, but being a Bangladeshi who also moved to a completely different state. Especially when we grew up here in New York. New York is a very small world.
Yeah.
And we really have no idea what it's like outside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We really live in such a big bubble here in New York. And being out there really gave me such a bigger perspective and bigger understanding of what this country is really like.
Right. Yeah, once you get out of like the confinements of, the boroughs, you really get to see like how amazing and vast the rest of America is.
Yeah.
So
so just quickly backtracking, you obviously coming from Bangladesh at the age of 5. How was that like? I mean, obviously you don't remember as much, but like as you said, like I went to high school, then we moved to Atlanta and Texas. Obviously there was a culture shock, but going from state to state, as you just mentioned, like hey, New York is a small area, and like we don't know what's out there throughout the country. But like, what is that culture shock like from coming from Bangladesh to here, right? Like, I mean, I know New York makes you adapt very quickly, but I'm curious.
I really don't remember much because when you're 5 years old, you really don't remember much. But I do remember, I never felt like a foreigner at that age. I guess you could say, especially living in a place as diverse as Astoria, Queens, which is where I started, kindergarten and first grade and second and third grade. I never felt any difference. We lived in different parts of Queens. We lived in Jamaica as well. That's really where I consider to be my hometown is Jamaica, Queens. And that also, I never felt like a foreigner there. I mean, I was not in the minority there at all. And I really felt, I would say when I have a very distinct memory of when I first moved to Atlanta, I felt like a foreigner. I felt like an outsider there. I remember being told like, wow, your English is really good, which as a little kid, it's not like, anything different, but it really stuck out to me at that time. And when I moved to Texas, there is actually a good deal of diversity in Texas, which I guess not everybody thinks about, but it's still a predominantly Caucasian area, right? And I did feel out of place there, not necessarily because I was Bangladeshi, but because I was a New Yorker. Yeah. And my whole cultural norms were just so different from the environment that I was put into. That's what made me feel out of place, is being a New Yorker.
Got introduced to Southern hospitality.
Yeah, I wasn't that hospitable.
What?
Yeah, it was very different.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, like
I had a very hard time adjusting there, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So reflecting back now, would you, obviously you're here and you have your business here. Would you ever go over there or to live, or?
No, I
times
would not.
have changed, but
I think for me, as I get older, as I have a family, I do think it's important for me to be around culturally diverse areas, predominantly because I want, I have a 9-year-old son and I want them to grow up with diversity. I want them to grow up around different people. I want them to grow up with people that look like them, that look different from them, that have different religions from them, that have different home systems than them. He's got friends with, 2 dads. He's got friends with parents who are not married, who are from different, ethnic backgrounds. And I want my son to have that sort of diversity. And, when you're around political environments that are, I don't mean to bring up politics right now, but, I was actually just in upstate New York this weekend, just a couple days ago. And
the state capital?
Yeah, it was near Albany. It's very, very red over there. It's a very conservative country. And I don't want to feel on the defense. So would I live in Texas again? I would love to, because there are some really nice parts about it, but I feel very good in New York. New York is home for me.
Your identity, it was like, as you mentioned, that like New York kind of shaped who I am, and Texas kind of shaped who I am today. And given the environment that you're in, and that you were in the past, would you say that it shaped who you are today in terms of like the type of work that you do, right? The impact that you have, like, does it kind of translate into that, or are you like, hey, Shaquille, no, like, I wanted to do something completely different, and I kind of decided to do law because of X, Y, and Z?
Right. So I think my cultural identity, I'm not sure if it was the cultural identity that shaped me into deciding to be a lawyer, but I think it was I would say that it was more kind of like some belief systems that I had, because I'm not too sure where it came from. It could have been my parents, it could have been just, I was a very, I think I was a very opinionated child, so I, formed my own beliefs a lot. Actually, I take that back. I think my mom probably shaped a lot, because my mom is, she is a very, she comes from the literary world. She's a writer. She's written many books. She writes in Bengali, in English. She's been writing for the Bangladeshi newspapers here for a long time. She loves to write opinion pieces and things like that. Her observations on life in America and things of that nature, observations on political issues, social issues. And she just comes from a much more different background. If I had to put, my father has passed away, but, if I had to put them two together, my mother comes from a much more different perspective than my father, who was a lot more, socially conservative and things like that. So I would say that my mother formed me a lot. And my grandfather, my mom's father was actually, he was like a communist. He was very, very politically active and things like that.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I think, before he passed, my grandfather passed away when I was 16 years old. And I remember him telling me that he was a humanist at the end of the day. So I would say like maybe those things formed me. And when you dig down to it, a lot of South Asian identity is actually very radical, right?
Yes.
We have had a history of fighting against colonialism. Bangladeshis in particular have had a history of fighting against another country for liberation. So there's a lot of that in the identity.
For our language. Right?
Yes, for the language. And language, that's been a huge thing, right? My mother's a writer. My grandfather, he was very, very learned, right? He read a lot of books. He had a photographic memory. He had hundreds and hundreds of books. And I remember when I was little, he would sit me down and say, Moumita, open to this page, open to page 19 or 900, right? And then he'd have passages highlighted, and he would just start reciting that passage.
Wow.
And I was probably influenced by that, and so somehow that must have directly impacted how I thought about the world. I always thought about, I would say that probably when I was in high school, I was very, 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 very politically aware, very, very politically active and aware. I started a club when I was in high school called the Political Forum, where we would just get in there and debate. And my mom was an immigration paralegal when I was little here in New York, and she used to work for some attorneys that are still practicing today. And when I would go with her to the office, that probably put the first spark in me to become a lawyer. When I was in college, though, and you know how you go to these activity fairs and you're walking around, and I came upon this young lady who was sitting there, and I asked her what her club was, and she said, well, if you're interested in equality or rights for all humans and dignity and justice, then this is us. And I said, yeah, sign me up. And it was Amnesty International.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't really know what a human right was, but it made total sense to me when she explained it.
Yeah.
And I signed up, and I became very active in that throughout my college college years, and I, sat on the executive leadership board for them for several years. And I really decided at that time that, I looked around at the U.S. government, and I noticed one thing was clear, is that almost every single politician was a lawyer. They had some sort of legal background. And I really I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do as a lawyer, but I really felt that I could only make a difference, I could only make a social change if I was a lawyer. And I know that the term now is social justice, and we didn't have that term back then, but I just knew that I needed to have knowledge. I needed to have this background if I ever wanted to go into politics, which I don't plan to, by the way. But, if I wanted to do something to change the laws, I had to be a lawyer.
Yeah, be the change you want to see. So, but going back to your college, when you actually found that spark to study law, were you already in college and then just deciding, figuring things out, or were you headed in a different direction, I wanted to be something else, and then I later changed on?
No, I just knew. Even when I was in college, awesome. Yeah, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do, is to go to law school and be a lawyer. Well, the other thing that I did want to do is I wanted to go into the foreign service.
Oh, I see.
Because I had this idea that I wanted to be a diplomat, but
Which is a cool idea.
Which is a cool idea, but I had no idea what it meant. But
it's kind of like being a lawyer too.
So. Yeah, exactly. I didn't really know what it meant to be a lawyer either. Yeah. None of us do until we actually do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I took classes. I was a history major in college, so I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of research, and that was the perfect training to become a lawyer. I took legal writing classes in college, and right away, as soon as I graduated, I took about a year off to study for the LSATs and get prepared for law school.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, because nowadays a lot of people they just go and they spend most of their time figuring it out, rather than working towards the goals. So
I can't do math, so
yeah.
I was never going to be a doctor, so the choice was actually pretty clear for me.
Our second segment is health and wellness. Not just physical health, but we also talk about mental health. How do you maintain that balance? What give us a little overview on the day in the life of Moumita.
So I think that it's really great these days how big mental health is, right? But it's not just about mental health; it's about uncovering the things that you have to heal in yourself. The things that you carry with yourself since childhood that impact you, because one thing is true, there is no isolated event. There is no such thing as work not impacting your personal life and vice versa, right? We live, it's a whole ecosystem, and it's all everything is a part of you, right? So you cannot just, address work. So let me give a clear example. It's not a very clear example. It's going to be a very roundabout example, but if you are having problems in your marriage, right? If you're having problems in your marriage, or you are having problems with your parents, you are, going through something in your outside life, that's not going to go away just because you step into an office or you step into a courtroom. It's gonna show its head. So similarly, grief of whatever sort always has a way of showing up in your body, right? Whatever it is, maybe it's anger, maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's physical pain. Grief always has a way of showing up. And we carry a lot of grief and trauma with us from childhood, from our parents, from everything cultural. There's so many things that we carry that we are not even aware about.
Right.
And I would say that the past few years has been a lot of discovery for me, to discover what it is that really affects me and why. You have to discover the what and the why also, right? So the first step is to really put a finger on that trauma, and then dig a little bit below it to see how it's impacting you, and then next have a little compassion for yourself. You have to have a little compassion for yourself, because you're just a human being.
There's a generational trauma, right? Like that you have to break through and things like that, which is a beast of its own. But then when you go through trauma, like someone passing away close to you, I think that's a different level of thing, right? And then there's ways to work through that, which is like work through that whole trauma. And obviously at some point you'll somewhat become better, but like you mentioned, that you have to kind of work through that on your day-to-day basis and really dig deep. So I mean, like when it comes to health and wellness, because there's so much to unpack, and that's why I'm sure we're gonna spend a lot of time on here. I'm just curious on to like, there's generational trauma coming from who we were and the background that we come from, right? Whether you struggle or not, like there's our ancestors have struggled and kind of laid a foundation into some capacity for us to become successful here. And then there's the trauma that we're going through day to day, and the culture and the environment that we're in, because there's mental health and is derived from so many things, right? Like not just trauma, but so many things. The environment that you live in, nature versus nurture, right? And so many. It's a loaded question, but I'm just curious, how would you divide that, stuff like that?
So, I think this is gonna. I can't believe I'm gonna actually admit this out loud, but I've actually never gotten therapy. I've never gotten therapy, not because I don't believe in it, but because I have gotten therapy like once, and I did not enjoy it.
But
so
I
never
think
went
like
back.
most people in our, with our background, in our community, they don't believe in like therapy.
They don't believe in it, but what I do believe in, what I did get a lot of value from is like group coaching sessions of different types. So I do a lot of different types of coaching, and what that has allowed me to do is it's allowed me to observe what others go through, and also kind of draw my own learnings from it, which is and like I can understand things more that way, and just so I think and that just goes back to that same principle of like, you have to kind of understand what it is that has impacted you, right? And it all goes back to like from when you're a little kid on and on, right? What your parents do to you, what your parents say to you, and then on and on. So I try to be a lot more self-aware about what my triggers are. If I had to take it one step further, again, going back to like, how did I actually allow myself to be in a position of leadership right now? Well, I first had to analyze why I didn't have any self-confidence, right? Why did I feel so insecure? Why did I feel so like such an imposter? Why did I feel like I was not smart? Right?
I think a lot of people feel that way.
A lot of us feel that way, men, women. And I do think that particularly being from a South Asian background, we are taught from a very young age to respect authority, and that they know better and we don't, right?
Oh my God, Moumita, there's so much stuff back here. So very quick,
don't talk back to me. What do you think? You're smarter than me? Like, how many times did you hear that from your mom or dad?
Exactly. Yeah. I got my ass kicked. But like, so I'm trying not to do that with my kids, right? And like, my wife has to remind me sometimes. I can't believe I'm admitting this on camera. She has to remind me sometimes, like, listen, like, you have to respect kids as well, because I didn't learn that. Like growing up, it was just like, you have to be fearful, and if you talk back, that's a sign of disrespect. And it doesn't matter what you say, whether you're right or wrong. If you talk back in general, that's a sign of disrespect. Oh my God, 150%. And so like, why I'm honestly so amazed and impressed by like what you have done with your company and who you are, because it's like not a lot of us get to break that generational trauma and break all those cycles and come through. And like I assume you're doing okay, but for us to get to where we are, there's so much that you have to break through to become.
Can I tell you something? I did not listen to my parents a lot. So that was my first breaking free
Right.
the generational trauma.
How was that? Like, because growing up for me, I mean, I've seen an immense amount of, like, I've witnessed domestic violence and all these other things growing up within my household. And so that only, like, shaped, when you're a child, right, you're also figuring out, like, when you're trying to figure out your identity, a part of that either becomes who you are or you move away so far away from it.
Man,
so,
you
like,
just mentioned something so tough.
Yeah, I would say exposure dictates experience.
I witnessed that as well, you know, and to an extent experienced that as well. And I don't know. I think, you know, I was asked by someone I know who is in education, who's also Bangladeshi. I would love to introduce you to her, actually, to do a little talk to young Muslim girls. And one of the questions was like, hey, how do I, and they're all in college. And one of their questions was, you know, well, how can I do all these activities after school if my parents don't let me go out? And, you know, they frown upon all these. And my response to them was, look, you have to understand that when parents give you things such as the silent treatment and things like that, it's, you know, it's actually emotional abuse, but it's really a tactic to try to get them, for them to try to get you to do what they want, because they fear the worst, that they're going to lose control of you and whatnot and all those things. And sometimes you just have to make a decision. Like, you're going to make a choice and you're going to stick to it no matter what the consequences. And I said to them, and I you know, felt very good with myself in the moment. And later I was like, wait a minute, that was probably such a jerk thing to say, because sometimes some of these young women may have a much more harsher situation at home, and we don't know how their parents are going to react. But for me, what I can say is that with me, like I said, my father was very strict, and I was not really allowed to do anything. But I took certain stands. I mean, I lied a lot too, and you know, like when I went to college, when I went to college, I did say, well, I had to live on campus because it's required. So that was the first thing, and then when obviously it wasn't, but listen, I wasn't going to have them drive me to college, you know, 40 miles away every single day. Like that was nuts. So I made a stand and I said this, and then, as I mentioned before, we moved from, you know, when I was in college, after my, you know, during the middle of my first year of college, actually, my dad decided that we're going to move back to New York. And I said, okay, but I'm not changing schools because it's the middle of the year. I'll lose a year. You know, I can't just transfer in the middle of the year. And it was a big fight, but I just did it. And at a certain point, parents, you know, like sometimes you have to hold your ground.
So I was going to ask you, did you do it because you knew that no matter what, they have to accept that the circumstances, or is it like, I just don't care what they think, I'm going to...
Well, I was just like, you know, you clearly don't understand how this works. This is, I forget what month it was, but it was like the middle of my second semester, I think, in college. You know, you have to, if you want to move and transfer schools, there's a lot of work that has to be done. You can't just do it on the fly, right? I would lose credits. I may not even be able to get into a college. And I said, all right, well, we can move back, but I'm going to still continue school here. And I just said it. And, you know, I was I was a very good girl, but I was a very hard-headed, rebellious girl too. And, I don't know. I just said it was going to be that, and there's a lot of yelling, a lot of silent treatment, a lot of, you know, attempt where, you know, to try to get me to change my mind, but I just said no, and that was it.
Did you get guilt tripped also?
I've been guilt tripped my entire life. Yeah, and again, you know, you just have to learn to separate. You know, hey, this is coming from their fear of being abandoned, or their fear that you're no longer their daughter, or whatever it is. And like, you're like, no, this is my life. You know, I need to finish college. This is my goal. I'm going to do it. And I still love my parents. And, you know,
right.
Back then, that's not how I thought. You know, I can think about it that way now.
Yeah, but as you get older, like once you see it through their lens, like you kind of understand it. But then you know the direction that you want to go to. So then you learn how to manipulate your way through.
I think, it was, I think my belief a lot of the time was like that they don't always know what's best.
Right.
They don't always know what's best. And
But they think they do.
they think they do, but they don't always know what's best.
Well, is it because like the hand that they were dealt with, is that why? Like, do you think that because it's like who we are today is based on generational things that happen in our lives, right? Like a lot of people say that like what your parents did, what your dad did, like a lot of our parents, that is a sign of love. Like it's a form of love. Did you ever look at it that way, or was it like, hey,
No, not at that age.
Yeah.
Not at that age.
I can imagine.
At that age, it just caused you a lot of anger and pain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was what it was, and I'm glad I don't think I did anything wrong. I wasn't asking to do anything wrong. I just wanted to stay there for school, and I didn't understand why it was so bad. Yeah. But it was a big scandal for my dad at least.
Yeah, you just opened the book to our third segment, which is financial independence. And, something you mentioned, I think it's really important is, in this country, and I think like in most countries now, rather than hard cash, like credit is a very important thing, in which our people, like, they don't really understand it. Like people from our community, they don't understand how important credit is, I've heard like once someone say like, you could have like $100 in your pocket or $1 million for that matter. And that's all you have if you have like bad credit. But you could have like not even $1. But if you have like excellent credit, they'll give you the world, like you can basically have unlimited, financial stability. Yeah. And so, you being, such a successful lawyer, you guys are all over the country, give us a little take on how that journey was, and, how did it all begin? When, like, were you just, back when you were in law school, were you ever imagining like, I want to be like, so-and-so big lawyer, or were you just thinking like, I just want a simple little office to myself where I can help a couple of people, and then it just took off? Like, give us a little insight about how that part of your life is.
I actually, it's really funny. I never really thought about money. I never thought about money. I never thought about, okay, what's the salary I need to make? How much do I need to earn? I never had a dream that, I'm going to be one of those big lawyers. I'm going to drive a fancy car. That's just not me. Those were not our family values, and I'm grateful to that. I'm grateful that sort of materialism was not part of my upbringing. I never dreamed of that. But when you do graduate law school, loans are so easy to get. The reality does set in soon after. And, when you're graduating from law school, most people are graduating with a 6-figure debt.
Right. When SoFi sends you that first bill.
Yeah, it's a lot, and you can defer, you can modify income repayments and all that. So I started my own law practice about a year after graduating, and I had decided that I wanted to open my own law firm. So I started to do cases, and I was married at the time. So I was very fortunate to have a second income to rely upon. But my first few years as a lawyer with my own practice, I don't think that I did more than break even. I don't think I made any profit. And one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn, one of my friends sat me down and he was like, "How much are you charging for this case?" And I said, "Oh, well, I think, I'm just charging this much." And he was like, "Moumita, you need to increase your fees." And I was very afraid to do that because, one, I didn't think that I was worth it. I didn't think that I could ask for more. So I had to really look into seeing like, hey, why do I not feel like I'm valuable in this world? And eventually it was a process. It was a process because my husband said one thing to me once. He was, I gave somebody another discount, and he said to me, "Listen, when you give somebody a discount, you need to think of it as you taking food out of our mouths." Yeah. And that really hit home for me because I was like, you're right. And when I realized that if my husband weren't there, there's no way that I could support myself and my son, that really lit a fire underneath me to really reevaluate everything and take a look at my fees. And I started to, really think about why is it that I felt like I couldn't charge more? Why is it that I couldn't charge, how could I make a living where I could actually pay for my own bills, right? If it weren't for my husband. And once I got over that and I started to adjust everything and look at things more from the perspective of, hey, this is meant to be, I'm a lawyer to provide for my family. I'm a lawyer so I can pay my bills and build a future for my family. Once I took that perspective that, hey, I'm running a business and not a charity, I was able to, charge a little bit more, hire people, and make more business. Because that's just, at the end of the day, when you're self-employed, you have to have enough time to do the marketing and do, speak to clients and things like that, so you can bring in more clients. And that's how businesses work. And that was a big lesson for me to learn. And, I've just taken that to more and more refined levels. And that's how we do well. And we are able to help thousands of people throughout the U.S., thousands. And this is really my wildest dream. I have a vision. I do believe that love can change the world. I do believe that if people receive a little love, receive a little hope, receive some kindness, that it just creates huge changes for them. And they pass on those changes to their family and to their community. And my vision is really, through the work that we're doing, is to just make a riptide of change throughout this country. And then eventually throughout this world, there's a lot of things I'd like to do.
Do you think financial literacy played a role there at all in terms of your upbringing? Because your focus was always on impact and not profits, right? And so do you think financial literacy played a role? Because that's maybe why, like, hey, I thought I'm not worthy because I just want to help people and I think this is a fair value, versus, hey, I want to help people, but I know I have to run a business and feed my family as well. So do you think financial literacy played a role?
Well, I don't know exactly what financial literacy is because I've had to learn things myself. My parents weren't really, didn't really have a lot of knowledge either. Depends on what you want out of life, right? What kind of a life do you want to have? Obviously, you can be content with very, very simple circumstances, or you can have like a super fancy life. But at the end of the day, I think especially once you become a parent, and not just a parent, I've been the eldest daughter of my family. I take care of my family. We don't grow up with parents that take care of us when they get older, right? Our parents don't have retirement funds. Our parents don't have investments. Our parents usually don't have real estate at all, right? So our parents, I have so many friends, American friends, whose parents are like sending them money, like, hey, but I could never imagine my parents doing that. They never really have been able to do that. And I've had to
kind
take
of
care
the
of them.
opposite. Like, usually when you're the oldest, you're working first, you're kind of helping the family as
Exactly.
well.
I've been
so
paying
while
rent.
you're
I've
sitting-
been
yeah.
paying. I started paying rent to my mom. Helping with family finances when I was in law school. I always worked. I've been working since I was 16, so I've always paid for my own expenses for the most part. But I started helping more deeply, when I was even in law school. So I worked full time through law school.
Do you think it's safe to say that, if you had financial literacy, if we had that background that some of your friends have, right? Do you think, I would assume the answer is yes, but just curious, do you think that if you had that financial literacy and the knowledge growing up and, you were somewhat well off or you had the resources, do you think your thought process in terms of how you run a business would change? Because you had to learn a lot of, you had to learn the basics of business and foundation of business before you.
I don't know about you, but I think one of the money what do they call it? Like one of our money beliefs. I think it's like a prevalent money belief in the South Asian society that money is bad or money is evil. People with money are bad people, right? And that never made me want to ask for more in case I looked like I was greedy.
Yeah.
Right? And perhaps if I didn't have that, and perhaps if I had the mindset like, no, actually I need to make this much amount of money because I have to, pay this much rent every year, pay this much in like expenses, and I also need to start putting aside for the future. Right? I need to start putting aside money for one day when I retire or for emergencies. If I had been taught to think that way right away from the outset, then maybe things would be different. I remember when I was in law school, as I mentioned, I worked full-time, and a lot of my classmates, we were in the evening program, so most of us had full-time jobs. And I remember very clearly this one friend of mine in law school was talking about how she was interviewing for this place, and she said, well, yeah, and they offered me 60, but I told them I need to make 70 a year. And I was like, damn, what the hell? Like, how much money do you need? Like, where is that coming from? Like, I remember thinking to myself, like, man, she's just rich, she's just greedy, she's just spoiled, right? And then now I'm like, nah, she was so smart. Like, she knew exactly how much she needed to earn to pay her expenses and to live comfortably.
Yeah.
Right? And like 70,000 sounded like the biggest amount of money to me at that time. And like, it still is actually, right? It still is. And, but to me, I was just like, I was taken aback that somebody would have the audacity to ask for that. I could not believe it. And I mean, my first job out of law school, I made less as a lawyer than I did as an administrative assistant, which is the job that I had throughout law school. So because I didn't have that audacity to ask for more, or the audacity to think that I deserved more.
As Bangladeshis, I think really and truly our upbringing and who we are, where we came from, I think that plays such an important part, right, in terms of the financial literacy space for us, because that confidence, and even till now, like I have friends who don't think that they have years and years worth of experience, and including me sometimes too. I'm like, oh, like I don't think I can do this position. I don't have enough experience. But there are things that I've done, like some of the responsibilities I've done on a day-to-day basis where I'm currently doing it, but when it's on paper or when it's a bigger salary, I don't think I'm worthy enough. And sometimes I have to like tell myself, because it's like, well, why aren't you? I have to do the same kind of soul searching and like, why do you feel this way? And I think that imposter syndrome is real. But I also think that imposter syndrome is real because of our upbringing and the lack of financial literacy in our country also, and just in general. So I'm just making a statement, not a question. I'm just agreeing with you because I think it's such an important part of our culture and like going forward as well, right? Because I'm sure you built this environment and built this business for you to help with your family and like for your kids in the future to not start at the start line, but at least have some kind of a head start, right? So
yeah, we have a lot of feelings of guilt when it comes to money. We have a lot of fear that it's a bad thing. If people are too prosperous, they're bad, right? So what is the right level? But in reality, people need to be taught that, hey, it's okay to want to make money, as long as you understand that, you're looking as money as like, for me, I mean, at least the way that I view money is like, money is just security. I can provide for my family. I can provide for my mom. I can, if there's an emergency, I can drop everything and I can go, like do what I need to do. I can donate to the charities of my choice. I send money back, every year, to the villages that my grandfather grew up in. Like, there's a lot of things that I can do now that's how I view it. I just view money as ability right now.
Right.
And I would love for people to everywhere to change in their thought, right? Sometimes you can't do much more, but I think there is a lot of power in believing like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do with my life, or this is what I'm gonna make. This is what I deserve. If you tell yourself things and you believe it, then it is true.
I mean, it all goes back to the mental health and the thought process of. I think it all goes back to that, right? And also our upbringing and cultural values and things like that. But yeah, I think it's such an. Talking about money is also. I don't know if you've noticed in the South Asian culture and other cultures as well. Like it's
like a taboo thing, you know.
Right. Yeah. It's sorry, it's not stigma. It's taboo.
So we know like you're big on social media and, you know, like TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. You know, what are some of the challenges that you face, like on a day-to-day basis, you know, running a business and then doing social media, and, you know, how do you keep it all together?
I have an amazing team. So again, you know, business is a cycle, right? You have to have a good amount of clients. You have to have a strong, I think the phrase is like, you know, you just have to have good clients coming in all the time, which means that you have to constantly tell the world who you are. You have to constantly tell the public who you are and what services you offer and what problems you can help fix. And it's a constant, there's no days off from marketing. I even do, you know, lives on the weekend at home from the park and things like that, because people need to constantly know who I am. There's no days off. And one of the ways that I'm able to do it is because I have such an amazing team. I have a great leadership team. I have amazing employees. I'm very
Did you correct me if I'm wrong? You said you had 90 employees. Is that?
I think we have more than 90 total. Yeah, we have more than 90 total.
Started with one, and wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we really, it's actually thanks to social media that we grew so much, because over the pandemic, I went viral, and that just started the calls coming through, and I had to hire more people to keep up with the calls and keep up with the work, and it's just, it just keeps going. So it's really incredible. I'm very, very grateful to social media for allowing me to reach so many people, because one of the things that keeps me going is people telling me that first of all, I get comments that, well, wow, I wish I'd heard of you 5-10 years ago when I needed this help.
Right, because you're literally changing people's lives. You know?
Not just that, but
the course of their future. You know, like for them to be able to stay and enjoy the opportunities that the rest of us do in this country.
I just love what I do. I honestly do. So comments comments like, wow, you know, I wish I'd known about you. This could have helped save me, you know, 5 years ago, to the current clients that we have who've had their cases denied because whichever lawyers they work with gave up on them or did not look for other ways to help fix their situation. And knowing that, oh, wow, yeah, we are the ones that got them out of that helped put this green card in their hand, get them out of deportation, you know, like that's the stuff that I really love. Yeah. So yeah, I have a great team.
Yeah, that must be an amazing feeling, you know, knowing that you actually helped somebody, like, you know, with their struggles, and, you know, you're not only are you helping them, but also their family and their future, you know, it's just changing the course of their entire livelihood.
Yeah. So, you know, one thing that I really love, you know, we're very big on customer service. You know, customer service is one of our main pillars of what makes us different. And one thing that I particularly love to see is the change in clients' faces and voices soon after they hire us, because we really like to emphasize to clients that this is the start of their new life, the start of their journey, and we really want clients to feel more empowered and more powerful once they've gotten through to us, because all these circumstances that just happened to you, you know, they chip away at your confidence, they chip away at your self-esteem, your feelings of your self-worth and things like that. And people just need to have a little bit of light shined on them to show, like, this is really what you are underneath, you know? It's not these things that have been piled upon you, but this is who you are. So I really love to see their faces, like their voices sound different. It's just a change. It's just a change.
You don't have to talk about specific finances, right? But in terms of like that girl who's in college right now, who's listening to your story, right, and wants to start their own firm, but they don't really know the ins and outs, and which they'll learn over time and through trials and tribulations. But maybe like from a financial perspective, is it lucrative? What are some of the expenses they need to look out for? What is maybe a range of potential income? And I know that's probably a huge, big range depending on, all of that. So just touch on this.
I think the first thing that you can do is definitely network in your community of lawyers to find out, because one of the things that I had the biggest challenge with, and I think a lot of lawyers have this challenge, is like, we don't know like what's a good price to charge. Like what is a good price to charge in terms of how much work you're going to put in? Because sometimes we're putting in like 50, 60 hours of work in a case, but you're charging like $1,000, right?
Yeah, like people don't see the back
right.
end
So you need to understand how much how much effort and time a case will take, and then you can start to build a price upon that, right? If something is quick and easy, should you still charge less? And I think that's where you have to make the mindset shift that as a lawyer, your each hour of your time, like, yes, even if it takes 5 minutes to do, that does not mean that you should charge $5 for it, right? Because your time might be worth, $500 or something like that, depending on how much experience you have, right? So charge appropriately from the perspective of how much experience it takes to do something, not just it takes 5 minutes. Because people are paying for your expertise and not just 5 minutes of your time, right?
But I think you should also choose an expertise that you like within the, law field, right?
Yeah.
You can't just...
Exactly. You have to figure out
Yeah.
what you want to do. Like, actually, I never wanted to do immigration law because I had a very bad opinion of immigration lawyers.
And now you became one.
Well, yeah. And I realized that I don't have to be like those lawyers. So that's why we do things the way that we do. But yeah, I did a lot of types of law. And I think be around other lawyers, try your hand on different types of cases to see what you like, what comes more, what you enjoy doing more. Because at the end of the day, you still have to believe what you're doing, right? You could choose any, even as a lawyer, you can choose any job that's paying you lots of money. But, if you're not getting back something that fills your cup, you're just going to be miserable. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard life. You're going to get burned out very easily too.
Yeah. And so for someone who wants to start their own firm, right? Like, what are some of the initial expenses that they should think about or cost?
So I would say that people don't need to have an office these days necessarily.
Yeah, by the way, whoever's watching, we're in downtown New York, very prime location here.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, like what would some of the challenges be for someone? They don't have to be here, but, anywhere they just want to, get in. Like, do you recommend?
I think that everyone should think about advertising, and I think everybody should think about social media. Social media is it's free. It has such a wide range. Definitely have a website, right? So you want to think about the cost for a website. And I mean, it's so easy to build your own website these days, or you can hire somebody to do it. Depends on what your budget is. I would say that if you are starting your own law firm, don't be afraid to spend money. It is 100% true that you have to spend money to make money. And I would say my mistake my first few years as a lawyer is that I made this decision that I'm not going to spend any money unless I make it first, which was completely the wrong way to go about it, because that means I did not put any money into advertising. I just sat there like a dodo, waiting people to come to me. But no one's going to do that. You have to put yourself out there. So at the beginning of your career, you're probably going to have to spend money to get your name out there.
Yeah, and that's the scariest part,
Yeah.
When you're beginning, and then you have to market, you have to, put yourself out there. And obviously that's a financial burden. And I think a lot of people have a difficult time taking that step.
A lot of people are afraid to spend money because they haven't made it yet, but you have to believe that you're just going to make it and that you're going to make it back double. I'll tell you something. A few years ago in 2019, I had to move offices because our landlord evicted all of us because I guess his lease ended. And we all had to move out of the space within 1 month. it was a very common arrangement is for lawyers to, share offices in one suite, and we all basically sublease from one tenant. And, we all got kicked out. And I had to find my space very fast within a month. And I had never had my own lease before. I'd always just rented one little room.
Commercial leases are a whole different.
Yeah,
ballgame.
I had never done that before. And when I was forced to, the real estate agent showed me the most beautiful, biggest space first, obviously, as all real estate agents do, and then showed us all the crummy ones later. So I said, you know what? I have to go with that one. And it was a big leap. I had to think hard because they were 2 rooms, 2 offices, and 1 big space. And I said, you know what? If I can't make rent, I'll just rent out that other office to somebody else. And that's what I thought I was going to do when I signed my lease for that space. But then I was like, you know what? Somebody told me, like, hey, if your expenses go up, don't get scared. Just tell yourself that you just have to get more business. You just have to get more clients. Use it as a motivation and not as a fear to hold you back. And that's exactly what I did. And it just,
I love what she
it just,
said.
and I have to tell you, it's like the world opened up to me when I changed my mindset about that. And like the clients just started coming in. You just have to change your mindset, and you just have to not be fearful of making choices and making certain commitments, and just use that as a motivation to just do more.
Take
Just
that
do
leap
more.
forward.
Yeah. At a certain point, you have to understand that when you do start having clients, a lot of lawyers, maybe other business owners too, it's not just lawyers, you have the problem if you're the solo person, you're the one doing all the work, and you're doing all the marketing, and you're answering all the phone calls, and, you're having to do all these other administrative things. All those things will take up time and get in your way. And the first thing that people stop doing is they stop taking new clients, or they stop advertising, instead of hiring support staff to help them answer the phone, to help them do the bookkeeping, to help them do the typing, or whatever it is. Because your mindset as a business owner should be, hey, my job is to bring in the clients, not just do all these little things. So you have to take that expansive mindset that, hey, if I'm getting too busy, I can't let the marketing die. I can't, turn away these clients, because the minute you stop doing that, you're just going to be in a hole the next month, right? Because now you have no more new income coming through. So you just have to, bite the bullet and hire people. Lawyers are very afraid to hire people. It's a big problem in the legal community. I'm sure it's a big, it's a problem with other small businesses too that I see. People are afraid to hire people because they're like, oh, well, I don't have that much money. Well, that's okay. That's why you have to make more money, because once that person frees up 20 hours of your time, now you have to take those 20 hours and devote them to acquiring new clients or marketing in different ways and thinking of ways to improve your
you
process.
don't realize how much of your time those little small things, just
So much.
answering the phone,
Yeah.
replying to basic emails.
Exactly. Even something as simple as just having a call answering service will save you so much
Right.
time, because you don't want to be the ones to pick up your own phone.
Yeah.
So delegation is key.
Delegation is key.
Yeah.
And that's the toughest thing too,
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Especially when you have a small business, a growing one as well. I'm curious to know, you said you have 90 plus people. How are you managing all that? This is plus
a good
class and all.
question.
How are you staying on top of all this?
Yeah, like I said, I have a great team. I have a hierarchy. I have, I have multiple levels of leadership. I have my directors, I have my associate directors, and I have my managers. So there's teams of teams of teams. And, we have very streamlined processes. We have a legal department, we have a production department, we have, sales department, we have a marketing department, we have an HR department. And every one of those is led by someone, and everybody has responsibilities. And like I was saying before, one thing that's very important to me is my team. I could not do this alone at all. I'm very grateful
teamwork
to my
makes
team.
the dream work.
It really does.
say.
It really does. And I also believe that, I want this to be the best place that anybody has worked at. I want anyone who walks away to feel that this was one of those places that they will miss working at. Obviously, not everybody's the right fit over here, but those who are the right fit, those who are contributing and who are helping move the needle, and those who care for others on the team and care for others, for the clients that we serve, that's who I want on my team. And that's who, I am very loyal and I'm very grateful to those team members. So I have amazing people on the team. I really do. And I don't know how I luck out sometimes, but I'm very lucky.
I always say that talent is distributed evenly, but opportunity is not. And I think you provide a lot of that opportunity, not just to your clients and people who are hopeful, but also to the employees and your staff and everyone else.
It's, a lot of our team is, we have our office in New York, but we have a lot of team members who are virtual as well. That's how we're able to, and they're also not inside the US. And a high percentage of our team are people who were formerly in the US, which means that they had to leave at some point. A lot of our team members have families back here, kids, and they're not able to come here.
Wait, so you employ people that were here but they had to leave?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm always looking for people who are bilingual, right? So English and Spanish speaking, and usually a lot of people will end up being people who have been just deported from the U.S., right? And it's huge. It's not uncommon at all. And in a lot of countries, there's huge industries of people, like a lot of call centers and stuff that are staffed with people who have amazing, knowledge of American lifestyle and English and things like that. So anyway, a lot of my team members have family here. They have a history of being in the U.S. They have a history of being an immigrant themselves. And, I believe that we're providing them a lot of, it's helping improve their lives too. And that's something that's very important to me, because the two main pillars to our success are the customers and the team. I want my customers to be the happiest that they've ever been, and I want my team to be the happiest that they've ever been. Without these two working together, without me taking care of both of them, without us collectively taking care of both of these things together, we're not going to be successful, And because we have, made a conscious decision to make sure the team is happy, to make sure that the clients are happy, we see the rewards of that. Happy employees treat the clients well. Right. I hate going to restaurants or anywhere where we get bad service, because bad service comes from bad management and a bad work environment. And you just know it automatically. And I'm happy to say that, our clients feel the difference. So we're accomplishing a lot of things. We're changing the lives of our clients, and we're also changing the lives of our team as well. I truly believe in being truthful and being honest with our clients. We never promise something that we can't do. I'm not interested in taking people's money. I'm interested in only helping the client succeed. If I don't think a case is good, but the client still wants to try, I leave it up to them. It's their choice, right? I'm here to advocate for our clients. So if I think that, hey, you only have a 50% chance, I will tell you and let you make the decision, right? Because it's your life, not mine. We believe in, we want our clients to come away feeling that this is the best they've been treated in a long time, because our clients go through so much on a daily basis. They don't get treated well. They get, they feel invisible. They feel that, they're suffering. The majority of our cases are humanitarian cases dealing with some sort of trauma. So they've been going through a lot. So I want them to feel that for the first time, they're being treated with care and compassion, and that they are just just the celebrities here. Like they're being treated like family in a world where they're alone.
Right.
And
sometimes just having that feeling of, there's somebody else who's like working for you or like working towards your, resolve your issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
That just having that feeling is like very.
I think a common complaint or common feeling that a lot of clients or immigrants have is that their lawyer doesn't really care about them. Their lawyer is actually rude to them. Their lawyer makes them feel like it's a burden, like they're a burden to them, right? And I never want a client to feel that way.
Yeah, because I think usually like, in your field, like the default mentality again, like about lawyers is like, oh, they're going to be too busy for.
They're just going to take my money.
They're going to take my money and not do much and just, push me away. But, having somebody who makes you feel like you're, that's actually working or, working to help you, like, and you get that feeling. That's like something, you can be rest assured to.
I can put my head down at night and know that, we are doing the best for our clients. Actually, that's what keeps me up at night, is thinking that I might have let down a client. So I don't want that. I just don't want that.
Your husband and your family and your child, I think you said you have a son?
Yes.
Must be really proud of you, honestly.
Yeah, they are. I think I need, one of my goals this year is to spend more time with my family because, work does overtake my life.
Yeah.
But they're proud. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. What I was gonna say earlier, now that you said that, was a lot of people in different industries and just people in general, especially minorities, they focus on the work-life balance. And one thing I've tried to do, and I'm still trying to do, is instead of focusing on the work-life balance, focus on the life-work balance. Because we center our work, our life around the work we do, versus centering our life centering our work around the life that we have. And it seems like, and I love what you said, because it's like, I didn't go into this for money. I went into this to make an impact. And I think based on this interview and just kind of talking to you, because before this we didn't really know you and speak to you, it kind of showcases who you really are as a person. And it shows that like the person that I am today is because of the life that I've had and the life that I'm continuing to build for me and my family. And so because of that, that life that you've built on the life that you had in the past, it shows in your work, because that compassion comes through, right? And like you're that person, so you're compassionate. Like you just said, like what keeps me up at night is, if I didn't help out someone properly, or if I couldn't help them. And people who say things like that are because they're truly passionate about what they do. And the reason why they're passionate about what they do is because that's who they truly are as a person. And so like I admire you a lot, basically. I think that was the longest way for me to say I admire you.
It was an amazing conversation. And so what we like to do at the end is just like give our guests some airtime. There's your camera, and just whatever you have in your mind, if you want to shout anyone out, you want to, say anything, it's the space is yours.
I think I'd like to thank my family first. It's a struggle of balancing everything. It really is a struggle of balancing everything, because there's so much that I want to do, and there's so much that I want to accomplish. There's so much work that I have to do, I'm obligated to do right now. And my family always ends up being first and foremost, the first to take the casualty of not having my time. And I want to thank my family, because I love them, and they support me, and they've taken care of me, and they mean a lot to me. And I think I would next like to thank my team, because they are incredible individuals that are just go above and beyond. And to my clients who are so resilient and put so much trust in me, some of them have never met me in person, and we've only spoken, to my, over the phone, and they still trust me. And it's incredible to me, and I'm so grateful that they do that. I'm so grateful that they allow me to be their lawyer. So honestly, the closing words that I have is just, of gratitude, that I'm very grateful for everything that I have. I'm very, very grateful for the ability to just breathe and move my legs and walk and be able to do the work that I do. I feel very grateful for the ability that I have to heal the people, my clients, in the way that I do. And that's it. Just thank you guys so much for choosing me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, thank you for honestly having us. This is such an honor for us.